So, to all the listeners out there, you want to talk about what your startup does.
Where we make education and employment inclusive against language, literacy, and disability barriers like blindness and low vision through our product Kibo, which is an acronym for Knowledge in a Box. Kibo basically allows our users to do four things: listen, translate, digitize, or audionize any kind of printed, handwritten, or digital content across 60 global languages.
So hi Liffers out there. Today we have Bonny with us. Bonny is from Liff Advance and is from Liff India. Bonny, welcome to the Liff podcast.
Thanks, Suraj.
So Bonny, yours is a very interesting startup that I've been looking at, and one of the very amazing things that I feel is that you've scaled. So you're one of those Liff startups which has scaled globally, and that's what always at the academy and as Liffers we always want. One of our dreams is to create a bigger impact. So to all the listeners out there, do you want to talk about what your startup does and maybe in a sentence and talk about your product or your solution?
Sure, absolutely. Hello everyone. My name is Bonny Dave. I'm the co-founder of Trestle Labs, where we make education and employment inclusive against language, literacy, and disability barriers like blindness and low vision through our product Kibo, which is an acronym for Knowledge in a Box. Kibo basically allows our users to do four things: listen, translate, digitize, or audiotize any kind of printed, handwritten, or digital content across 60 global languages. So basically, imagine a blind person sitting in a library picking up a book and simply using one of our products to access those content, those books independently in the language of his or her preference. So that's in a nutshell about the work that we do. And we started our journey in 2017. I'm a mechanical engineer. I graduated in 2017, and since my final semester project overlapped with me meeting my co-founder at a pre-incubation center here in India, where we had applied as interns and eventually found that synergy and took this full time. So that's the journey. And interestingly, when I started out, I never thought about doing entrepreneurship. I always wanted to do, my career trajectory was mechanical engineering, do masters in aerospace and get a job at one of the big aircraft manufacturing companies. So that was my planned career trajectory. Things changed for me when I started volunteering at a blind school in my city. And for the very first time, I saw Braille books. In case you've seen Braille books, those 6 dots that visually impaired people touch and read. So I was very intrigued by it. I went about understanding more around it and figured out how difficult it is to produce Braille books. And not only that, it's very difficult for those kids to carry those Braille books around as well. And I used to compare it with the way I had access to content. I could pick up anything, get my notes from my friend and access it. So that gap pushed me into building a small project during college. It was a refreshable Braille display that would convert a digital text into a Braille output. I showed it to the kids at that NGO, and I would enter a character on my laptop and ask the kids to guess. And that, seeing the smiles on those kids' faces gave me a sense of fulfillment for the work that I had done. That was not rocket science, but it was meaningful enough for that kid at that point of time. So I guess that feeling stayed with me by the time I graduated, where I had two options: whether to go for my final semester internship at Hindustan Aeronautics, which is the national aeronautics agency here in India, or go and join a pre-incubation social innovation center and work in the domain of social innovation. So somewhere deep down inside, that feeling stayed with me, and the joy of seeing what you built, empowering someone, gave me much happiness. So I stayed with that decision and applied there, and eventually met my co-founders, and we started Trestle Labs in 2017.
Wow, so 60 global languages, that's a pretty stretch in context of languages, and two interesting moments that I feel is the one that happened at the blind school, where you felt that in context of the satisfaction or the alignment there, and again meeting your co-founder in the incubation center. So I think these could be two areas where because very pivotal for your part. So I would want to go a little bit deep. Can you explain that this was the planned trajectory and this was the trajectory that it took, and and maybe these were the two or maybe the other things that happened. So can you talk a little bit more about the incubation center meeting your co-founder? Because again, we have a lot of lifters who are scholars, who are founders, and we all have something which is more stronger in us, and we're trying to find the other side. And again, in lift, most of us are got PhDs, and we're very good in the academic side. So a lot of us are trying to fill in the business side of us. So are you the business side or the academic side? And your co-founder, the business side or the academic side? And if you can talk about a little bit more on that part, and and if you can give us tips on how to find a co-founder.
Yeah, I'll say finding a co-founder, the process is pretty much similar like finding a life partner. So there's a strong nexus in both of those relationships that get established. For me, I'll say 80% of it is luck, serendipity, right place, right time, and 20% of it is some of the tactical things that both of you have rough edges, and how do you polish yourself to be able to undertake this journey together. So I'll say that 80-20 ratio. For in my case, my co-founder Akshita, she is a computer science graduate, and she also during her college had built a college project for the visually impaired kids. So she had built a glove that could enable them to navigate and also read text. So she had built that, and similar experience like me. She also visited an NGO, demonstrated the project there, and got some feedback. And so much so that there was a kid during her NGO visit who, after using the device, turned back to her and said, "Didi, when can I get this?" So for her, that guy was so super impressed, and he asked this question, but she didn't have an answer, because college level, we don't build for scale, right? So simply build for the sake of the project. So I guess that was her experience when we met at this pre-incubation center called Digital Impact Square, which is a TCS, Tata Consultancy Services Foundation here in Maharashtra, Nashik, which is a city in Maharashtra, where I'll just give a line about what they do. They take socially motivated individuals who are in their final semester of their pursuing education, or recent graduates. They take those very early stage, idea stage folks, or even folks who simply want to do something in the social innovation domain, and give them mentorship, groom support, so that they can identify a problem worth solving and build a frugal first version of their idea. So very early stage, so much so that once you graduate from Digital Impact Square, you are fit enough to apply to other incubation centers. So I'll put it that way. So both of us met there, and because of our complementary skill sets, mechanical engineering, computer science, our previous experiences of having built projects, I'll say, for the visually impaired during our college days. The third part is both of us did not have a backup option, saying that no, I have a placement that I can hop onto in case if this thing doesn't out. So it was either 0 or 1 for us. So both of us were in it or not in it, 0 or 1. And at a point of time in life where we were recent graduates, we thought that this is the best time to experiment with life, even if we don't succeed. So we had an option that even if things go well, let's say we give ourselves 1 year, we will consider it as, okay, we tried, we didn't succeed, we'll reset our life and do something. Let's take up a corporate job. So we were ready to reset our lives, but do this with full commitment and give it a shot. So I'll just do all of these factors played their role, and when we started the company. So it was, like I said, serendipity, luck played a major role, and then definitely when we met, we spoke about it. What is our value, or what are some of the values that align, and what is, if there's a vision alignment as well of what we want to do in life. So
wow,
yeah,
congratulations on that.
And it was not like an infinite commitment. We knew that, okay, we'll try it for so much time and then assess and then take the next step. So we were not mindless about it, but we were also being considerate.
The right mix of balance and right timing and a lot of luck in your case. So amazing. And again, like you have it in the in the movie or the in which there's this Trojan horse in that war. So you're burning all the ships so that you don't have the path to escape, and then you just go attack the enemy. So I just want to go maybe one layer deeper into the co-founder path. And I have never worked with co-founders. So I've built multiple companies, but never, because it's a very different aspect for me. But as you have worked with co-founders, so what are the three things that you should do or you should take care, and three things you should not working with the three do's and three don'ts when you work with a co-founder? And yours is, I think, a very well balanced in context of two co-founders. There are super guys who have 3, 4, and 5 co-founders, so it's like a incredible synergies aspects. So if you can talk about in case the lifters find their co-founders, what are the things to do or not to do, three things that they could look at from your learnings.
I'll say, just to clarify in our context, as when we started out, there were 3 of us, 3 co-founders, and so me, Akshita, and Abhishek. When this is 2017, and like I said, all the 3 things should match, and we had understood very early on in our journey that in case of Abhishek, while the intent was there of working for the visual impaired community, I will say it was the priorities did not align at times. So like I said, right, 0 or 1. In his case, while he was in it, and in between he took up a project with IIT Delhi, and so he was briefly there, and you know how long distance relationships work, right? So similar case, so both of us, you were here full time, and then he had a project commitment at the educational institution, and he used to devote some of his time. So that eventually did not work out, and in 2021 we mutually amicably decided that it's best for him to continue what he is comfortable with and good at, and we taking care of what some of the things that we are good at. So we also had breakups, and we had to steady our ship also with one of the co-founders leaving. So in terms of do's and don'ts, I will say, based on both of these experiences, the do's are, as I said, about 3 do's is, do you understand the things that you are building for? So if you're asking me to build a biotech startup, which I have no clue, so if not you, somebody else in your team having that skill set, like the core tech skill set, or if not the skill set, at least the understanding of how things work, even if you may not end up doing all the stuff. So that domain understanding is first. In my case, Akshita had the computer science background, I had the product mechanical background, so that was it. The second do's in terms of co-founders or the early team is the commitment. All of us have different priorities, not only at a personal level but also on a family level. Some of them have financial commitments back at home, and there are multiple variables. So don't simply onboard people because they feel startup is a cool thing to do. There are other better things also that you are well off. But so the commitment, and is there any baggage that you have, that you come with when you're venturing out? It might be a very tough conversation to have, but that is important to put it on the table. And the third main do is when you're starting out, having a very strong shareholder agreement, or that agreement between the co-founders of what are the roles, responsibility, and the commitment in terms of legal binding of shares, how many shares get issued, what point of time, and what is the ownership structure and everything. Because if you have that hard conversation up front, that commitment is set, and any deviation from it can always be looked at. This is what we committed 2 years back, and see, this is how it. In our case, that was what I won't say saved us, but I'll say it helped us come back to and say, hey, this is what we had agreed upon, but see, this is why it's not working out, and hence we won't be able to continue. So having a strong documented shareholders agreement or co-founders agreement is a must. So these are some of the do's. Some of the don'ts, I'll say, in co-founders, even as on today, we have disagreements between me and Akshita. Disagreements in a say we both have different perspectives of how. So I'll say we have some thumb rules of how do we work. We have, even if there is a disagreement on a certain topic, we have a thumb rule that makes sure that two people cannot be angry at the same time. Two people cannot yell at each other. It's only one person at a time. If somebody is angry, the other person has to stay calm and do the role of a pacifier. So that's one thumb rule that we have between both of us. The second rule is come what may, whatever disagreement, anything that we have, we don't pass it on to the next day. It's like before you go to bed, you have to sort it out, whatever, like give or take. Okay, sometimes you give in, sometimes the other person, sometimes just for the sake of trying, you take that approach to see if it's working or not. So whatever it is, you sort it out before you go to bed, so that it doesn't spill over and that doesn't get accumulated. So that is the second co-founder thing.
I think you're almost there for I think with so much of rights, I think, but it's pretty interesting to understand that the priorities need to be aligned as do's. The domain understanding of your weaknesses should be there. It's a big do. Documenting shareholders agreement or any kind of documentation that can be a super big do. It can help you navigate or act as a lighthouse for you to pivot and get it. That's super awesome. And not to go pretty amazing that you spoke about, being okay to have disagreements and and only one person can yell at a time, or having certain thumb rules which can help you custom help navigate and not taking the same aspects at the end of the day, just letting it go, or example being aligned, or as you said, come what may. So that's super amazing in context of these informations, and I think this will be very interesting for other listeners to hear as well.
Yeah, and if I were to also add an additional dimension to the already super complex ecosystem of our co-founders. So we started in 2017, and me and Akshita got married like about a year and a half back. So that is another added dimension of that balance, work life, how to do that. So it's been very interesting journey of, the complexity keeps increasing, but we are kind of have a Buddhist way of, making parity with whatever is coming our way. So yeah.
Wow, that must be in terms of being sane at work and not taking it home, and it's pretty
yes.
But I think, and again, Bonny, congratulations on your solutions being deployed at the Indian Parliament and at Lok Sabha. So I think that's an incredible feat. So talk about that to all the listeners, to all the listeners here.
Yeah. So just for the background for everyone, we started the timeline is we started in 2017. Had our first pilot launch in January 2018, about a year since we started, and with all the feedback and everything, we launched our products in July 2019. And since July 2019, as on today, we now have our products across 600 institutions in India, which in turn is impacting about 100,000 individuals. In this journey, this is about 6 to 8 months back, in the month of March or April, we suddenly received a message from one of the consultants saying that they wanted to talk. And when we talked with them, he told us that the Indian Parliament, Lok Sabha, there are two houses. So one of the houses was revitalizing the library to make it more inclusive, and they had got a reference from one of our NGO customers, which is like an apex body in India when it comes to working in the disability space. So they had reached out to them on what sort of products should they include in their library, and they had recommended our product, and they had asked this consultant to scout for us and get us on board. So we received that call and saying that they want to set up Kibo in the Indian Parliament. And first we didn't believe that, okay, it's really the Parliament. Then we came to terms with it, and then we went, set it up in the Indian Parliament. One of the key requirements of theirs was that they want an on-site setup. So usually for Kibo, we ship the product to the customer and do a remote like a Zoom call based training, because it's very easy, like plug and play. But in this case, they said we need an on-site training. We told them that it's okay. I mean, we can do it offline, but say no, we only do on-site. And you're like, either ways, if you're not asked for it, you'll also either ways you would have come to do an on-site training, because who gets to enter the parliament building? It's not like every other day you can get to walk in. It was very fun. We went there, a lot of history with the parliament, and it was altogether a different experience. And Kibo being amongst all of those things that it's there where the constitution is sitting. So it's a very good feeling of being there. And it's also not only for us personally, but it also stands as a testament of being inclusive, led by the premier body or the apex body in the country. So we use that as a testimony when we go and speak with other institutions, other colleges, schools, college, universities, libraries, even public libraries, of how they can also be inclusive for not only visually impaired people, like I said, people against language, literacy or disability barriers as well. So that's how it was very fruitful and nice to do that.
Wow, congratulations again, and that's massive. I think we should be so proud of reaching that particular milestone. I think it's pretty great, and again where the constitution is written again, so it's pretty awesome. Bonny, you spoke about 600 institutions indirectly impacting 100,000 individuals, and then Kibo is again present across a lot of the countries out there. So it would have started somewhere, and at some scale you would have started to scale at a certain pace, and then you would have scaled up. And from your conversation, what I also understood is you are the guy who has the part or the perspective in marketing, whereas your co-founder looks at the product side. So if you could talk about maybe 3 stages or 5 stages where you started the marketing, and in certain, so what are those 3 ways where you think that the spikes happened? Or if you could just talk about marketing in brief for Kibo, what you planned and how you reached the 600, where you are, so if you could talk about that, then that can be very interesting for others to also know how to scale, because it's a different beast at every segment. So I think,
sure. So it'll be good to understand our product positioning before I answer that question. So we imagine like marketing or sales is not a bad thing. Like people often have this notion that selling is not something that is good. Like I don't know, there's some misconception around it. Sales is actually the bloodline of your company because that gets in the money which runs this entire engine. In our case, I will say, it can be a different perspective, but I say you market at every single stage of this entire startup journey. Even when you're just having this idea, because you're always selling something. In a very early stage, either you're selling your idea to someone, to an incubator when you're pitching. If you're building a product, you're trying to sell it to early adopters, early users for their feedback. Even if it's not built, once it's built, you're trying to sell it to early customers, again to get their feedback, improve on the product, everything, and when you're launching the product, you're selling it even more. So every single point of time you are selling. So it is like a built-in trait of any startup. You sign up for it when the moment you think that you want to start up. In our case, when we were building Kibo, we just as a background, Kibo has 4 products. Basically, it's 2 for individuals, 2 for institutions. So we have a Kibo mobile app that's available on Android and App Store. It's like a lifestyle product for accessing any document on the phone through audio in the language of your choice. We have a Keyboard Desk web portal which allows you to access similar documents, PDFs, images, anything on your computer through audio. So these are B2C. Then we have a Kibo Access Kit, which is a magical talking table lamp type device where you keep anything underneath, press a button, it starts speaking. So that is the institutions. And more recently, we launched a Kibo 360 portal, which not only allows you to use the hardware to scan hard copy documents, but also allows you to upload documents on the portal and listen to it in the language of your choice. So this is our stance of our product suite. Our go-to-market has been a dumbbell approach, because on one side, we sell our products to individuals directly. These are visually impaired individuals all the way from students to employees working in banks, IAS officers, visually impaired IAS officers who use, or even aspirants who are preparing for competitive exams. So all of those are the B2C part. They either use the app or the keyboard desk. On the B2B part, we have institutions, like I said, schools, colleges, universities, libraries, public libraries, and offices, where we set up our products. We took this conscious decision. Many of the pro marketers would say this is not a good approach, that you're trying to hit two birds at the very same time. But it fit in our scenario, because one way you're empowering the individuals, and the other side you're enabling the ecosystem also to be inclusive, so that they are able to produce content in an accessible format and offer it to the people who need it the most. So in our case, it was a fine balance that has been working for us. So that has been our go-to market, or the key channels of how we are taking this forward. And some of the other things that I'll say, that individually, I told you about broadly of how we are doing B2B, B2C. If I take a step down, in B2C, it is mainly organic, like purely word of mouth, people referring the products and they using it. So our B2C is on autopilot, that it keeps, because these are digital products also. So they keep getting referral, and then people sign up, subscribe, pay. It's subscription based, everything. So we don't spend our dedicated resources on the B2C marketing. We gave it a push. There was value in the product, and now it's building on itself. So it's on autopilot. We monitor it now and again, but it's mostly on autopilot. Our dedicated sales efforts, like outbound sales efforts, goes on the B2B front, because these are institutions who need in-person demonstrations, who have a set process of filing for the approval, and then they getting approval from the finance team, and then it typically takes about 2 months, also 3 months at times, for that completing that entire sales cycle. So this is where our outbound efforts are. So in B2B, we have two parts. We have in-house sales team who goes to different institutions and like door-to-door selling. In the early years, both me and Akshita used to go visit every institution. Like we used to do city-wise outreach. So we'd plan 10 institutions in a city, go there for 3 days and go to every institution, like that. So we did it to about 450, 500 institutions where we ourselves did door-to-door selling. We understood the entire process of how it works. Then we got more team members on board and delegated the task to them, saying that this is the process, you simply repeat this process, and that should serve the purpose. And then we shifted our focus to more top-down approaches. So we are now speaking with governments in Delhi, Karnataka, state government, central government, to do a large-scale project implementation. So like 500, thousands of devices. When we are working with the government of Karnataka, they had issued us a letter to deploy it in 135 libraries. Seeing the impact, they have now extended it to 2,000 libraries. So just talking about that scale perspective. Similarly, so that is B2B. And our sales team of what me, Akshita, and our sales representatives do. The other part of B2B sales is, this year onwards, we started onboarding distributors. Because we sell to libraries, school, college, universities, we identified people who have been selling products to universities since decades, 3-4 decades. And they have the network, and they know the ins and outs of how to navigate this entire ecosystem. So we onboarded distributors in India, as well as in 9 other countries where we are exporting already. And we have, so these countries are US, UK, Kenya, Ghana, Tanzania, like 6 countries in Middle East, India, Thailand, Nepal, Malaysia, like a couple of about 20 odd countries in general, where we have initiated this distributor partnerships in these regions. So in-house teams plus distributors for B2B. B2C is on autopilot. So that's our structure of 4 products, B2B, B2C, and how they in turn are reaching the end users.
Wow, so I think that's very well organized and structured. I wanted to hear understand. So how does Bonnie make these the plan? So are you someone who reflects like in a year and you create because the realignment for 2024? So how do you go about it? Because now you have a lot of things structured in place. Your focus is more on personalism, more on the bigger projects. You have a team who does the B2B, and you have referrals coming from B2C, and obviously now you're pushing the distributor network, so that goes along. But how do you like? How does the thought process, or how do you think about the next things in creating structure? Like, so is it like is it like you have some mentors there, or is it you are doing computer analysis and trying to understand how they are leveraging, or is there any way in which you think how you take the plan, or like you have some habits or some something aligned? And when do you do it? When is the tweak change happen of the variables that you spoke about?
In our case, like again, this is very specific to our case. Every interaction that we have with the customer, many of those failed interactions also saying that the reason why they are not buying is because your product doesn't do this thing. Many times it's like, can I speak to the product and can it like type it on the screen as well, because that's a requirement for the professors who do take online classes. So just as a small example. So some of these inputs, like of why Kibo is not the right fit for them as of now, also feed into the system. Then now we know that there are many people like them who may need it, and that gets as an input to the development team, and so that we can target those audiences in the subsequent phases of our scale-up journey. So that is one loop that feeds into the proper user feedback loop that goes into development team, opening up or broadening the scope of the market that we currently already have. So that is one approach in terms of how do we plan our future roadmap. Second approach is many of these B2B, even B2G conversations take time to nurture, and at times you simply cannot rush around it, but you have to keep knocking the door every now and again to see if there are any developments. So those B2G conversations, we keep it on the back burner for it to mature any time they want, when their priority aligns, and you know that you are ready whenever that thing hits in. So these are some of the seeds that we keep planting and keep nurturing this relationship, because sales is relationships, mainly B2B especially. This is building and nurturing those relationships. So that is something that we keep doing, and hence much of the things that we foresee in the next year would come from the conversations that we are having this year as well. I'll give you an example. So even B2G, so the next year, so if they want to procure Kibo, they need to have it in their budget, like a line item, that this is the thing that needs to be procured next year, approved by the entire committee. And for them to include it in their budget gets finalized in the month of April, like the starting of the financial year. And for you to be in their list, you need to have that conversation with them like very early on. So once they know you are in their radar, they'll consider you, put the line item in the budget. And in the next year, when you go to them, then they'll start having that conversation. Okay, now that it's also there in the budget, let's discuss. So I guess, you cannot put all your eggs in one basket, but you also need to make sure that you're having these conversations on a rolling basis. Similar to like B2G, similar to these distributors, because once you have a distributor, for an example, our latest distributor in Africa, they may not be able to like just start selling on the day zero like they're doing in India. They also need to have that sensitize the market the product, and then the conversion should happen. So much of the fruits that we may reap in future have to be nurtured now. So I say that's our strategy of how do we go about pre-planning many of these things and staying patient enough to wait for the day.
And so here the institution or the B2B customers are school libraries, college libraries, example, and governments. Is that correct? Or what else? What other places can Kibo fit in? Which are these institution segment?
So I'll give you some examples. So we've set it up in government school libraries, college libraries like IIT Delhi, management institutions like IIM Ahmedabad, central universities like Central University of Tamil Nadu, state universities like Gujarat University. So educational institutions at all levels, as well as public libraries. So this project with the government of Karnataka was to set up Kibo in rural public libraries in Karnataka, where they don't necessarily have visually impaired people, but they have people who cannot read Kannada, which is a local language here. So they are illiterate, but they can understand Kannada. So we have people who take newspapers, scan it and listen to the news every single day, or they end up picking an English book from the library and listen to it in their own regional language. So these are the public libraries where we have set up the products.
Awesome. So, and when you spoke about all these countries, so which are the countries, live countries, where you not started selling?
Not started selling. Oh, many. South America is something which is like not there, and we look forward to connecting with fellow lifters or people they know, or people or lifters who are in the domain of education or building education products, and they are anybody who's selling into institutions or NGOs as well, who could that would be an interesting conversation to have with fellow lifters. And also in December from Oceania Islands like Australia, New Zealand, that part, that's also some we don't have any references there. And because of the language, like I said very early on, because of the language capabilities that we have, it helps us. So the incremental difference of making it customized for a particular geography is small for us. So hence we are able to scale it also to other geographies. So yeah, South America, Africa as well. Not that we've covered South Africa. I'll wait to speak with Excellent. So South Africa is something we have not covered yet. And so these are some of the geographies. And Europe mainly. We through the LIFT program we got introduced to a distributor, and we've had that initial sales with those distributors. But the other European nations, European countries are something that we are seeking to partner with. So yeah, pretty much everything is wide open. While we have had initial traction, or I'll say initial conversation with folks in very specific geographies, they're still open to explore, because the reason is these distributors also have a very specific customer segment that they're selling. Not like a distributor is not selling to every single school, college, universities, hospitality, not everything. So open to conversations with anybody who's in the education space or anybody in general.
And Kibo's market would be directly proportional to the population of the youth in that specific countries like Mexico, Indonesia, because there are a lot more young people in those countries, and those countries will go for the institutions as well, right? Like Mexico is like population, Indonesia, huge population. So and you have presence in Mexico and Indonesia as well at this point, or like how?
Indonesia, no. Mexico also, no.
Perfect. So we are planning a meetup of a town hall lifters meetup in Mexico in November. So I think this could be interesting to connect with some lifters, so calling in all cohorts who are around Mexico for a town hall meetup, have conversations followed by dinner. So I think this could be interesting for them to know that we have someone who is looking out for this aspect. So this could be interesting. Perfect.
Right. We do have individual customers. Like I said, this organic growth with B2C, many of them are from Indonesia, and but not like proper B2B customers. No. B2C, yes.
Incredible. Now coming to the last part of the conversation in the podcast, like so we always ask this question, like if you had a superpower, what would that superpower be, and why?
Superpower
to be more for your own safety.
Yeah, I'll say the superpower to travel anywhere across the world without the time that it takes to travel. The time and the energy that gets drained out when you're traveling very frequently. So yeah, I mean, because you, like both of us and like mainly alongside the other team members, both of us keep traveling to these different places for these B2G conversations that are super tricky. They'll call you up any single time and they'll come. We need an input. They don't like Zoom doesn't exist for them.
And they don't respect you have anything to do. They feel that you're just sitting there waiting for your call. 2 hours notice. Yeah.
So yeah, that would be a really cool superpower for teleporting yourself to a different place without pre-checking to the airport, sitting in the airplane, and then post-check-in process and everything. So that would be a really cool superpower to have.
So teleportation is what you choose. Perfect, Bonny. And Bonny, so we've been trying to do a lot of activities on a lift, right? Because now the lift Advanced 3 has opened. The lift global new cohort is 2024 is starting. 2023 has passed out, and again the diversity in lift is very incredible with so many researchers, so many diverse cultures, and the bonding that happens in the residential is very incredible. However, and we also have the platform, for lifters to connect. We have the AAC working on certain activities. We have the academy pushing communities. But still, what are the ways in which we can still harness the power of the alumni? Because there are so many amazing, incredible people in the alumni, and the collective power is still not unleashed, right? In context of a lot of aspects. So, do you have any thoughts around what kind of activities or engagements that we as alumni could work on that can truly help us cross collaborate and create a better impact, or have the feeling of doing good together and creating money or creating sales at the same time as well? But what are your thoughts on how can we do better engagement or other engagement activities with the alumni?
I will say many of the things on the academy side are already in place, be it the innovation portal or these groups that like we operate in, like both of us and everything. So I guess in terms of the infrastructure or the things, everything is in place already. And I still see that, even if I go through the group chat at times, there are many people already talking to each other, people especially who are in the same domain. So I guess things are there. The only thing that we can do, what I feel, is to just increase the frequency of just coming together, so that these interactions, so there are some organic interaction that, I know that Suraj is good at this, let me take Suraj and seek his help around it. So that is something that I know of, but I don't know that there's a fellow lifter in XYZ place as well who's also probably struggling with the same thing, and why don't I speak? So not like by force, but also creating more opportunities where there is more infusion of, or like crossing the paths. I'll just put it that. How can we enable crossing of the paths more for people, maybe through these simply online meetups also, or I don't know, any other thing that can help enable more crossing of the paths together. That should be a reasonable thing that we can.
Perfect, Bonny. So I think you spoke about an organic way for us to have more interactions and just to have conversations, and to so that could incredibly, amazingly add as well. Perfect, Bonny. So I think it's been incredible having you at the podcast, and a lot of very interesting perspective on the co-founders that you spoke about, followed by the perspective of how you can scale the company, and then the product placement of yours is very interesting, even with a two-dimensional approach of attacking or targeting two segments together. However, putting your focus and channel energies only on one segment. And then also the interesting part of doing it yourself and then putting a process around it and then scaling it and then focusing on very different areas. So I think that's been very incredible as well. So many learnings here for me and from all the listeners who would be here listening. And one takeaway for me is to look for lifters out there in South America and Mexico, which I'm sure I can get 2-3 names now itself. But let me have conversations with these guys when I catch up, and I'll connect them with you as well. So it's been awesome to have you on the podcast, and thank you so much for your time, and looking forward to connect later as well.
Thanks, Suraj. All the best to everyone who's stayed through this entire conversation, and I look forward to speaking with you soon.